There's nothing more valuable than hard work. And when you've put in the time and effort, not just early in your career, but throughout your career, it truly pays off. And today's guest knows a lot about that. She's someone who I've known for several years, and I've had the pleasure of watching her rise in her career in so many, many ways. Lana Womack is the Director of Creative Development and Production at OBB Media, and you know them for projects like Sabrina Carpenter's Netflix special, A Nonsense Christmas, Demi Lovato's Child Star on Hulu, and iHeart's Jingle Ball. And I've seen firsthand how she moves between creative and production with brilliant ease. Today, we're going to learn about what goes into making shows and content, and we talk a lot about what does the future of media and entertainment look like as well. So here we go. And we're back with a very, very special guest today. I think the first time I met her was in the pandemic, which was a wild, wild, wild time in television production. And I think we probably worked on somewhere around 10 projects together over 3 years. So Lana, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just so honored and excited that you could join. You are a force to be reckoned with. I just think that, and you're so early on in your career too. And I'm really excited for everyone to hear all your wisdom and stories and advice and all the things.
Oh my gosh, that's so nice of you to say. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yeah. So give us a little bit of an introduction, right? And I'd loved for you to talk about where you currently work, what you're currently doing, and then I definitely want to get a little bit more of your work history as well after that.
Totally. Yeah. I am a producer. I'm currently a director of creative development and production at OBB Media, where I've been for almost a year now, almost just under a year. And then prior to that, I was a producer and development exec at a couple different production companies in a kind of similar world, and have mainly focused on live events and, multicam and variety and things like that, but increasingly have shifted more into the kind of branded content space. Mm-hmm. So that's me.
Love. When you were a little girl, did you think you wanted to work in television and media?
So no, but now in hindsight, there were a lot of signs, I think. But I grew up in rural Virginia and definitely had no exposure to the entertainment industry or no kind of awareness of how things were made or how it worked. So it definitely wasn't something that I knew of or thought about until I came to college at UCLA, and then obviously being in LA, suddenly you're like, oh, there's what's CAA and WME and people are in the mailroom and what's that? But in hindsight, I used to always, watch, movies and things like that. But more than the movies, I was obsessed with the bonus features and the behind the scenes and the making of stuff. And I would always watch, we had the Lord of the Rings box sets that were a million hours long, and I would watch 7 hours of bonus features of just the making of and the prosthetics and the set design and the location, scouting, even, just so cool. All that stuff that now in hindsight I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. I do that for a living now.
Yeah.
On a different scale. But so now looking back, I can see that there were signs, but I didn't know at the time.
And so when you graduated from UCLA, how did you start in the industry? What was your first gig?
It actually started while I was still in school. So, I got to that kind of point where everyone's getting internships. And like I mentioned, people I knew were in the mailroom and, getting internships at agencies and networks and things. And I didn't really know where to start looking. And two sort of random events set me on the path. So the first was I was obsessed with just working at one of the networks. I thought that is just how I should get started. And I loved 30 Rock. That was my number one show when that was still coming out. And so I was obsessed with NBC, and I would always check their job listing pages for anything. And they had a brand marketing internship post. And I didn't even really know what that was, but I applied for that and didn't hear back for weeks or months. And then around that same time, my sorority group chat, someone posted in and said, oh, a guy I know works at this restaurant in Westwood, and they are doing a focus group for some new MTV show. You get free dinner. If anyone wants to go, let me know and I'll sign you up. And so I was like, oh my God, it's A, free dinner, and B, I'm assuming the president of MTV will be there, and I'll get to hand him my resume. So I was all excited, and I went, and when I got there, it was two people named David Jammy and Jesse Lead. And funnily enough, I saw Jesse at a wedding this past weekend, and he brought this up, and it all came flooding back. So funny timing. But it was these two guys who worked at a company called Dun & Dusted, and I was like, who are these guys? What is Dun & Dusted? I've been completely swindled. I thought I was meeting Mr. MTV. And like, this is a waste of my time. I've never heard of this company. And I didn't know what a production company was even. It was basically a focus group for what ended up being MTV Wonderland, which was a show that Dun & Dusted did a series. It was like a live music series basically on MTV. And they wanted to like tap some young people and do a focus group to see what was resonating with young people. I started out really skeptical because again, I was like, who are these people? But it was so fun and creative, and I just couldn't believe that this was like two adult men's job, was to like come up with a fun music concept and a music format. And it was all like the show ended up being, I believe it was like Lizzo's first ever hosting gig.
I think you're right.
Way before she was like a big, the big star that she is now. It felt so insane to me that this was like something that you could make a living out of, just sitting around a table and thinking like, oh, well, what if there's like a live DJ in this room, and then what if there's, some branded thing happening over in this area? And I was like, oh, I've never thought that people come up with this stuff. So then I remember I got home and I looked up Dun & Dusted, and I saw that they made the Victoria's Secret fashion show at the time, which was the biggest, thing you obviously,
you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, you could possibly imagine, that everyone was obsessed with. And so then suddenly I was like, okay, Dun & Dusted, what are you? Now I'm interested. And I called them the next day and asked if they took interns, and they didn't. But the girl that I spoke to on the phone said we might soon, so just keep checking in. And I literally called and emailed them like once every 3 weeks until they finally were like, okay, well, now's the time. And then, coincidentally, that same day that they said that, I heard back from the NBC internship.
I was waiting for that to come back around.
That I had applied for months ago, and they were like, hey, we just had someone drop out. Do you want to meet for this? Like, you would start like next week. So I did that. I went in and met with that person, and I had a really wonderful boss. Well, I guess I've just spoiled it, but I ended up taking the NBC internship.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I just thought, I feel like I've got Dun & Dusted on the hook now. They know I'm obsessed with getting this internship. I think I'll get it next semester. The NBC one felt
once in a lifetime.
Yeah, like I just was like, I think if I turn this down, I won't get it again. And for better or worse, I took it. It was definitely not for me, just in terms of, I think working at a company that big, I think I learned wasn't for me. It was very corporate. The specific team I was on, the people were so wonderful and so nice, but basically we were doing marketing for DVD and Blu-ray, which was sort of just a sad, not the sexiest
in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, nor the most kind of bustling of verticals of business at the time. It was really kind of on its way out. So it wasn't the most inspiring place to be at the time.
But you did it.
And it felt valuable to have that on my resume at the time. So I'm glad I did it. And then the second it was over, I called Dun & Dusted and said, okay, now I'm available. And then, so I became an intern there. And then there was 1 week where the assistant of the president of the company was going away to a wedding during a show week during Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Sports Awards. And so he needed someone to fill in to just help him on site.
Keep his life together.
Exactly. Swap out his script pages in his binder on site. They asked me to fill in, and then I did. And then I remember saying, between you and I, actually my assistant is leaving, and, it's a bummer. I know you're still in school, because you've proven this week that you're like totally capable for the job, but it's a bummer you're still a student. And this was the summer after my junior year, and I just immediately was like, no, I'm available. Like, I can do the job. That's actually, I'm fine. I can figure it out with my classes. And he was like, oh, okay, well, if that's true, then great. And I was like, yeah, give me like a week, but yes. And then, so I immediately dropped my minor. I was minoring in Japanese, and I got rid of that, and then just went to my kind of, I guess, counselor at school and was like, how can I make this work? And I figured out a way to do like a couple summer courses and shift the other credits I needed to like night classes or like evening classes. And then I went back to my internship the next week, and I was like, okay, I figured it out. If you are okay with me leaving like an hour early on, 2 days a week, then I'll make it work.
In. Wow.
And so then I started, I guess that fall probably. My whole senior year, I was an assistant.
Working.
Yeah.
You were working.
Full time.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I didn't know that. It's so telling too, right? Because you're one of those people that hard work just sort of comes out of your pores, right? You just have this like calm confidence. You have to put in the work, right?
Yeah.
You have to be willing to go the extra step, work the extra hours, like figure it out, set some things aside. And I think a lot of times like people don't do that and then fast forward and they're kind of like, why didn't this work out? It's like you didn't put in the time, like when you needed to put in the time.
Yeah. And I think like in this industry too, I'm sure as with many others, but there's so many hungry people that want to do the work.
There's a line out the door.
And so if you're not persistent and constantly reminding people that you exist, you could have had the most lovely impression on someone, but if you're not reminding them that you exist, they'll, you might just not be top of mind.
And it's a gentle dance, right? Between a reminder that I exist to
stalking.
Holy cow, this person's hitting me up again.
Yeah.
Do I just stop responding? Because
totally.
Yeah. I want to dig a little bit into what I believe, and I think you really dance between these two worlds of creative, but then you also have this immense, well, let's call it a business savvy, right? And I think that's the piece where like the production side of stuff comes in, right? The logistics, the budgets, the pay, right? And I feel like you've always, on many of the things you've done, like you dance between these two worlds. So I'd love to just talk, a little bit about what does that feel like and sort of what have you learned about yourself as you've grown in your career?
I think anything I've learned has been learned for the most part by kind of like a trial by fire. Like I think the biggest times I've sort of felt myself growing and learning really sort of tangibly have been when I'm sort of thrust in a situation where like I really don't know what I'm doing and I shouldn't be the one making these decisions, but somehow I am. And so I guess I just have to fake it and figure it out. Yeah. And I've had a few of those situations that I think have really been to my advantage and helped me along the way. Because I started out as an assistant, which so many people do in this industry, I was privy to like a lot of conversations and sat in on meetings to take notes with, really high level executives and talent and whoever the client was. And those are just conversations that you don't hear or you're not a part of, when you're building your career. And that I think I really took as much advantage of as I could and like really was an active listener in those conversations and tried to learn how the business side of our industry, which takes place in those conversations that you're not usually privy to until
I think everyone should be an assistant.
I agree.
I think you learn so many skills and you have access. I mean, my assistant is in my inbox, literally sees every single piece of information, whatever it is, right, that comes in.
Yeah.
And same thing at the agencies too, right? It's invaluable and you don't realize it at the time, but then, you get past it and think, oh, I learned how to do this skill because I sat in on those meetings or I saw how that email was handled. So I want to talk like a little bit about how shows and projects are made, right? Something that you know a lot about. I mean, I know from my experience there is no exact recipe ever, but I'd love for you to share a little, how does it go from inception to completion?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a couple different ways that most projects, at least that I've been a part of, kind of can be sorted into. One is probably the kind of begins with like an RFP, whether it's a network or a brand or a talent that wants to do something and they have a general or even a vague idea of what they want to do, and they're looking for a creative and a production partner to sort of show them what that could look like and pitch themselves. And I think especially earlier in my career, a lot of the projects I was involved with came about that way. So it was a network coming to us and saying, oh, we want to do the 50th anniversary special of X, Y, or Z, and it's an hour and we have this much money and what can you do for that? And kind of sing for your supper. A lot of projects came about that way, but I think increasingly it feels like there's less of a cut and dry, this is how something gets made. So more recently, I feel like a lot of the work I've been a part of has come about in less traditional ways. And, we've had opportunities to go out and actually just pitch talent on an idea that we have and see if they're interested and attach them to it and then go out and sell it to a network, or work with a brand and kind of get an understanding of their brand positioning and their brand goals, and then think creatively about how we can use content to achieve those goals, and kind of use it as a vehicle to make content that feels really exciting as a producer to make. And it almost like it happens to be serving this brand, but actually it's a great project that you're excited about, which was the case with the project that we most recently worked together on.
No, and I feel like we should talk about that a little bit, right? Because I think that was such a unique and cool project that would have fit in the normal entertainment television box so perfectly, but yet was completely separated. I mean, it was distributed on Rolling Stone, like on an editorial platform.
Yeah. So the project we're talking about is Cards on the Table with Stanley Tucci, which was a branded content series for Allbirds, the shoe brand. And yeah, it definitely was a less traditional way of putting a project together, but in some ways also increasingly is kind of the way that we look to make shows. So we started working, by we I mean OBB Media, we started working with Allbirds, and they came to us and said, you know, we are getting ready to sort of reintroduce our brand, and we really want to clarify who we are as a brand and who our target consumer is. In an ideal world, it's a Stanley Tucci type, you know, this kind of chic,
cool guy that everybody knows,
has
so
interesting,
relatable.
Exactly. Yeah, he has interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And he wears great, comfortable footwear. And we're like, okay, sure, no problem. Let us take that and kind of think about some stuff. I mean, this is always a sort of a dance with a brand, is trying to convince them that the lightest touch branding is, you know, the best road to success for everyone, including them. And they were really great partners and trusted us in that, and kind of allowed us to take the content in a direction that didn't feel like a shoe commercial.
Yep.
Developed a format with Allbirds, which was this conversation format where a Stanley type would sit around a table with, you know, 3 to 5 guests who seemingly came from different walks of life, and they would have a conversation guided by these sort of really thought-provoking questions that were designed by someone like Dr. Orna Gralnick from Couples Therapy. The goal was to really find deep levels of connection between these people that you wouldn't think have anything in common. And they were on board with that just because it embodied kind of the philosophy and the ethos of their brand without, again, being a shoe commercial.
Whose idea was Dr. Orna?
That was, I don't want to fully take credit. I'm a little bit of a one-trick pony because all of my cultural references, and I'm only laughing because I get a lot of shit for this constantly.
Yeah.
All of my references for almost anything are Armchair Expert.
Okay.
It's just kind of one of the very few podcasts that I've continued all these years listening to, and it's just great. Just like hanging out with my friends when I put on the podcast because I just know their voices so well. Yeah. And so anyone that goes on that show kind of gets lodged somewhere in my brain for me to pull out in a meeting later. Dr. Orna Gralnick was someone that I loved her episode and was so impressed by her. And then my colleague Lenore was a huge fan of the show, and so she was immediately on board. And then we just had to kind of convince everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think we DM'd her on Instagram.
Yeah, I love it.
Just say, hi,
we're doing
you don't
this
know
thing
us,
with
but
Stanley Tucci.
Well, I don't think Stanley was even
on board yet.
Okay. Or maybe he was. Actually, he may have been. I don't quite remember the order there. But yeah, we just thought like, okay, who's a Stanley Tucci type? Why don't we just try for Stanley and see what happens, and who knows? And so we went out to his team, and
we waited a long time.
And we put our pencils down for a little bit and thought, well, we'll see what happens. And then he was totally down. Yeah. And he was the most wonderful collaborative partner, and his team is great, and they totally got it. Yeah, it was just one of those projects that like doors kept opening and people kept saying yes, and we ended up having Stanley on board. We had Dr. Orna on board, and she helped us, you know, kind of curate these questions and come up with the sort of psychological journey that we wanted these guests to go on to really like help them open up and connect. The questions are meant to kind of follow the flow of a 3-course meal. So there's the appetizer course of questions that are just sort of kind of disarming, and it's like, describe your favorite sandwich from your childhood.
What was yours?
Oh, that's a good question. Truthfully, I'm like not a big sandwich person.
Same. I hate it. Anytime my mom packed me sandwiches, I would trade them for like my friends who had like the Lunchables or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I did
God.
not.
Lunchables have so much social capital on a playground.
Yes.
I think that my favorite sandwich, if I had to choose, is in Japan. They have these sandwiches where they cut, first of all of the edges off. So it's like pristine white bread. And then it's like a chicken katsu and some sauce and then bread and maybe some mayo. So if I had to pick, that's probably it.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah. Anyway, the questions are meant to be kind of disarming, and it's like, you're not just talking about the sandwich, you're talking about why it's important to you and what your memory is from your childhood. And it just, all the questions were designed very intentionally to kind of put people at ease, but also help them open up a little bit. And I think now on the other side of it, having taped a few episodes of it, that really worked. And people loved being on the show, and often the cameras would kind of stop rolling and Stan and the guests are still at the table talking, and we're kind of like, can we interrupt? Are we done? Like, they're still having fun. Everyone's exchanging numbers by the end.
Yeah. It's a great shoot when all of these talent have hard outs, right, before going into it. And then at the end of the shoot, it's like you almost have to kick them out.
Yeah, exactly. They blow right through it. Everyone, we were shooting in a beautiful place at like a hotel, and people are getting drinks afterwards. Like, it was just, no one wanted it to end. So that was really amazing. And then the series, we cut it together, and we, distribution strategy was always a big kind of question, and obviously and a very important one. Allbirds is kind of owned and operated channels, didn't have the biggest reach, and so we wanted to find a way to amplify that. And Stanley's social reach is really, really strong, and some of the guests we had as well. Worst case scenario, we knew that it would do well on socials most likely, but we wanted it to have the best shot at kind of getting real viewership. And so we were able to pitch it. Once we had an episode cut, we pitched it to Rolling Stone. They felt that it was aligned with their content and look and feel, and willing to work on a very short timeline to help get it up on their platform, which really helped give it, I think, some extra credibility and boost.
That was a fun one, and I know so much of what OBB does is brand centric, right? And I think, but you were doing some of that when we worked together at Done and Dusted, but just in general, so much of the traditional unscripted television, right, is gone to the brand side. And I have many theories about it, but I'm curious yours, right? Why do you think, other than the obvious, money, right? But why do you think that so much of this is shifting towards branded content?
Yeah, I mean, definitely money is a not insignificant factor, but I do think that what is challenging with the more traditional kind of networks and streamers is that increasingly all of those networks and streamers are having to really just prioritize appealing to the most number of people. And that was always such a struggle in more traditional TV development that I did, where, you're doing a big network show and you need to appeal to the younger audience but not alienate the old audience, and also promote, use this as a vehicle to promote the talent from our new show coming out this fall. Then you just unfortunately watch the idea get diluted and diluted and diluted until you check all those boxes. And I don't know that in the end your end result is the most impactful piece of content that it could have been. And I think with brands, what's really exciting is that not always, but often they have a really clear goal and audience that they're trying to reach, and they have a clear brand voice. And if you get lucky with the brand partners that you have, which we have been with most of ours, you end up working with someone that's a pretty easy yes or no on everything. It's like, no, that person doesn't really represent our brand in the right way. Yes, this person does. Our goal is to highlight this product, or it's to tell this message. Then because that direction is clearer, there are opportunities to take some more creative risks, because you can come up with fun, interesting ways to achieve that goal in a more creative way, because the other big goal is just always to, make the most amount of noise and the biggest impact online, and that does take some big swings sometimes. And so I think brands increasingly recognize that, so they're willing to kind of take those swings, but they're still focused in a clearer way.
It's a great point. And I think also, you mentioned it earlier, when the brand is saying, hey, we're coming to you because you're the best at what you do, and they actually let you run with it and go with it. It's mind-blowing what is possible, right? Because even when we were doing the Stanley Tucci, we had such a short amount of time by the time it was over the holidays, right? It was like
timing couldn't have been
worse. I think it was like December 1st, we're a go, you know, and we're filming like January 12th or something, you know. Okay, have a great holiday season. We just had to have a lot of conversations because people are traveling or they're not, you know, it's just kind of a weird time of year. And I think, you know, it was so quick, that talent approval process. And it's not always that way, right? Because I think a lot of times, especially with talent, they overanalyze, right? And so I think for me, that was like really refreshing to just be able to like go and do our thing, you know?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And no disrespect to anyone that works at a network or a streamer, but I think a lot of those people are producers themselves and they have strong opinions about the way a show comes together and they want to be, you know, very rightfully involved in the process. But often with a brand, they're just relying on you to be the expert. And so if you tell them that a talent is really impactful and you can show them the numbers to back it up and explain why, you know, you think it's right for them, very often they'll be like, okay, great. Totally.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice. In looking back at your career, I mean, I would love to hear, were there any projects or shows or moments that was just like a turning point or that could never be done again? It was just a game changer for you?
I was able to work on the last 2 years of the Victoria's Secret fashion show before it kind of took a hiatus and then changed its form a little bit. Certainly can look back now and recognize that maybe it's not a perfect show and there's plenty to say about that, but it was such an impactful show culturally at the time. And for me growing up and getting to work on it full circle and have a voice in the edit on it and produce a backstage camera on that and be a part of what I had grown up watching for so many years was such a meaningful moment. Felt like an I made it moment. Another project that was really impactful was the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor for Dave Chappelle. I think done and dusted at the time that I was there was often we were brought in to kind of re-energize a stale existing format. So whether it was an award show or something else like that. And this was one that the show on stage at the Kennedy Center kind of is what it is. It was on PBS at the time. It didn't have a huge budget, but it has this incredible lineup of comedians that show up for each other. Yeah. So it feels like there's a huge opportunity to do something amazing, but somehow it's like there's not a lot of wiggle room. And we had done the show the year before to honor Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and that was a really fun, great show to work on, and I think it turned out really well. But then with Chappelle, his team and he as kind of a creative artistic genius that he is, really was able to, you know, push us even further to change the show and play with the form a little bit. And so we did a stand-up show in DC the night before the event with Dave and Tiffany Haddish and a bunch of other comedians that were in town for the event, but also just other friends of his, and he's from DC, and so it was, you know, a really cool show. And then we filmed that kind of as like this gritty sort of doc style event, and then we shot some other stuff with Dave leading up to that weekend, and after we were able to kind of weave that into the Kennedy Center show, which was completely star-studded and an incredible just like night of comedy. Yeah. And for anyone that wasn't a part of that watching it, it probably looks far less revolutionary than I'm making it sound.
No, but you were there.
But yeah, knowing where something like that starts and how tough it is to really make meaningful changes to a format like that that's been done so many times and for so many years, that felt like a really big win. And I haven't brought up Kristen Wong yet somehow, even though she's been a part of almost every project I've mentioned so far. But she really was like the voice in that pushed that to be what it is. And she's always one of my favorite people to work with. Yeah, that was just like a really meaningful one where I felt like I had made a creative impact on a project that was really fulfilling. So that has definitely fueled me for a number of years.
I love that. I love that. Is there something you feel like you still, I mean, obviously you have many, many, many years left in your career, right? But is there a list of things in your brain or that you've written down that are like, I'm going to do the Oscar, you know, whatever it might be? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like increasingly that has gotten sort of vague in a good way, where like I used to feel really focused on like I wanted to, you know, be a showrunner or showrun an award show or something. And I very fortunately got to kind of live that out last year and sort of show run this iHeartRadio Music Festival. It was exhilarating and incredibly stressful. And I was like, okay, well, this is great.
Well, I was going to say, we've done award show where you see that showrunner position and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Very
stressful, not
very
a lot
stressful.
of sleep.
Yeah.
But very rewarding.
Yes.
And very happy and proud that I got to do that. But yeah, then it kind of, I guess, the goalposts shift. And now I think, especially working on a lot of the branded work, and I think something that OBB does so well is like, we're not just a kind of typical production company. There's like a ventures arm where OBB and various partners at OBB go, can kind of use content as a vehicle to build business. And that has been really inspiring to see. I would love in the future to have an opportunity to, whether it's around a talent that you're working with or with a brand or some sort of other property or just based on the merit of the content itself, but turning content into something bigger, whether it's a business or something like that would be amazing.
I think that is absolutely the direction. From the talent and the brand side, the conversations around ownership and how, right, I think are just different now than they ever were.
Yeah.
And on the talent side, they used to get paid SAG-AFTRA scale, per episode, and it's talking massive stars. And I think just all of the, understanding value and time and, okay, if we're going to put all this time into something, why not take it to the next level? Because Lana, how many projects we've done some incredible things together, and you just bust your ass for weeks or months and pour your heart and soul, and then it's like, the show ends and you're like, you almost have this like adrenaline crash.
Totally,
right?
yeah.
Or the project ends and that's it. So I think that's absolutely brilliant, and I think it's a very interesting time to see how some of those conversations are playing out.
Yeah,
and
totally.
What the future of media and entertainment is going to look like.
Yeah.
Right? And do you have any theories or thoughts on, sort of where you think we may go?
I mean, in some ways it feels scary, but
yeah, sure.
I think
but anything unknown is going to be scary.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
You talked about DVDs earlier, but
yeah.
The whole moving the industry to streaming was scary.
Totally. Yeah. Really good point. Yeah. I think, seeing now what AI already is capable of doing with generating video and video content, and I'm sure in a matter of days, weeks, months, it'll be far beyond anything that, we've imagined. Obviously that's scary in a lot of ways because it disrupts the way that we make content, but hopefully it creates new opportunity, and I'd like to think a human brain still needs to be behind all of that, coming up with the ideas and shaping it, and I'm sure the landscape will change, but hopefully there's still a need for human touch in that process.
Yeah, I think that it's about our ability as creatives to utilize the tools. If you avoid them or don't utilize, you're just going to get pushed out the door. But if you are able to come from a perspective of, I understand all of these tools and I know how to use this to make everything more efficient or better or faster or whatever it is, then I think you have so much more value.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's scary, but also we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I don't know. I also just think our industry is such a silo, and even verticals within our industry are such a silo. Live and multicam always felt like such a kind of contained space to me, and that was always a big priority of mine, to sort of try and branch out to feel like I could do other types of producing.
Yeah.
And I think in general, I'd love to just continue branching out, and I think increasingly it seems like companies are branching out now too. It's like a production company isn't just a production company, they also do creative consultancy and whether it's venture.
Well, they have to.
Yeah, exactly. It's you just have to diversify a little bit more, which I think is exciting because I love not being pigeonholed into one thing. So
I agree.
More of that.
I agree. Yeah. One of the things that I love to talk about with all the guests here is just what makes us feel good, right? I think a lot of times when you're working for someone else, or when you're working, and even in me and running my own business, right? I'm always, most of the time, working for the client or someone else. And so I love to just kind of take a pause and think about how do things make you feel? What actually brings you joy?
I definitely enjoy shutting my brain off a little bit. And that used to be mainly something I did by watching
Trash
anything
TV.
Bravo.
Yeah.
A variety of housewife
A
franchises.
lot of people say that.
Yeah, like that was just for years and years definitely like all I craved at the end of like a long work day was just like I just need to like not think for a little bit.
It has the opposite effect on
Really?
me.
It
I
like
can't
it makes you
watch
anxious
reality.
or something?
No, I think it just like makes me think about work.
Oh,
For whatever
interesting.
reason, because it's like I don't know. Yeah, give me a CSI or something.
Oh yeah, that's right. We've talked about this. Yeah, no, I can't do anything really that dark. I just need like fluffy noise.
Yeah.
But I also really find joy in like completely like non-screen time activities, and I've really tried to prioritize doing that more. You know, we live near the beach, so I'm able to walk the dog on the beach.
Yeah.
And, you know, stay active and ski in the winter. I don't know. I mean, these are all kind of like
No, but I think it's
regular things, but
yeah, but when you're someone who works so much and not just like the amount of hours, right, but just the brain power and the investment mentally, physically, emotionally, because I know you're that kind of person. And I think so many people in this industry are, right? You have to be passionate to like stick with and do the grind of the media and entertainment industries. Then it's those simple things that bring you just back to being human.
Yeah, I think the grounding is like the key part of that. And I've tried to reduce my amount of reality TV intake. And it has been really positive because, yeah, it's just like I think at the end of a long day now when I'm like mentally drained, instead of just plopping down and turning something on, I've really tried to like be a little bit more active. And actually that is rejuvenating in ways that sitting on the couch isn't always. Definitely a balance is important, but
I love
not that interesting of an answer. But
no, I think it's a perfect answer. And what do you feel like makes you feel the most powerful?
Oh, I think that for most of my career up until the last few years, I was definitely not the decision maker, rightfully so. It was really rewarding if a piece of something that you said in a meeting made its way into a deck, into a thing, and that was like, you know.
You knew it.
Yeah. No one else would know it, but you knew that you
knew
said
it.
that in that meeting, and that's why that was there. And that was always really rewarding. And now I'm really proud to actually sort of be overseeing projects and really taking, you know, and being in the driver's seat on the projects that I'm across, and all of that credit goes to the team I'm on now and the kind of autonomy that we get and the trust that's placed in us to do that. It can be really hard to, I think, have a job that is like a creative industry job, and it's so subjective, the work we do, and it's very easy for someone to just say like, no, I don't like that idea.
Yeah, it's because you're so vulnerable.
Yeah,
right? Vulnerability constantly.
Totally. And so when you do come up with an idea that resonates with other people, and then if you're, you know, fortunate, the 1% of the time that actually then goes somewhere and turns into something, that is like such fuel for a very long time.
Hell yeah.
That's great.
I love that. It's a career milestone, you know, and I think like there will be so many more. I still have them even after running a business almost a decade. Like I feel like that's what it's about, right? Kind of leveling up what makes you feel powerful and like getting to that next place and discovering a new layer of confidence in yourself.
Totally.
That's when I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like, you know, every once in a while I'm like, dang, I just crushed that. And like, you know, just didn't even like think about it.
Totally.
And I think we have to like remind ourselves
Definitely.
of that.
I still like, if someone signs off on an idea or if a client likes an idea that I had, there's still a part of me at first that's like, maybe they weren't listening, or like maybe they didn't get it, and like it's gonna hit them eventually that it's a bad idea. I can tell that over time I'm getting better at like, now I'm like, no, this is a good idea and you should like this.
Well,
and
they call that imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So much imposter syndrome always. Being here today, for example.
I know. When I asked you to do this, you're like, me? What? Why? And I'm like, what do you mean, why?
No, I'm still like, why am I here?
I've, you know, in the 5 or so years that I've known you, I mean, I've watched you rise, right?
Yeah.
Like even in the work and the projects that we've done together. And I think I've also seen like that power and that confidence come through in you. And like, there's nothing that makes me happier, truly. Like it's just, it's amazing to see people that you know work their asses off and are so talented and so smart. So anyways, like kudos to you. I adore you. Well, Lana, tell everyone, where can we find you? Where can we follow you and, keep tabs of all the amazing things that you're doing?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at lana.michiko, Michiko. And I'm on LinkedIn, Lana Womack.
Amazing. Well, Lana, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you.
And for, sharing your amazing story. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode, listening and watching another episode. I have to get used to that because version 2.0, we have audio and video, people. Things are
moving on
elevated.
Yeah.
Yes. Please reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Send us an email, say hi at cultivatedent.com, and you can give us a follow at Cultivated Entertainment on all of the things. And I'm your host, Jen Proctor. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.